Hello everybody, welcome to AskPolymathGeddy, your polymathic source for wisdom, knowledge, and all things polymathic. How about that? Alright, we have a question today from Sandy in LA, CA, which I'm assuming is Los Angeles, California. Her question is, you said in one of your videos that you believe in the existence of God. What are your thoughts on why God doesn't show himself in the world today? Do you believe that he will in some form someday? Well, it depends on what you mean by show himself to the world. If you mean physically being manifest body, I think the closest you're going to get to that is Jesus on earth. That's the closest you're going to get. I don't see that happening again unless Jesus returns to earth, which I don't think will happen in our lifetime or in the next several lifetimes. But no one knows for sure. So what I have to say about that one is, if you really want to know how to observe whether God is showing himself to you, you have to understand the mechanisms of communication God uses to allow us to see him. And I always refer back to natural law, okay? Because natural law is the very thing that defines the whole universe and gives it order, structure, and morality, and universal absolute truth, and values that are based in eternal reality, okay? So you have to observe natural law, and there's something called cause and consequence. And basically it goes like this. If you do something negative to yourself, the result will be negative. It seems kind of common sense, right? Well, we think that God is showing favor on us when we are doing things that bring a positive result. But we're thinking that God is being negative to us when we see things that are negative. But really it's, for the most part, cause and consequence. Now I will say there are exceptions to the rule. For example, if you eat food that's good for you, it will have a cellular effect in your body, and it will regenerate your cells and your body's ability to function, and it will enhance your health and your mentality and your happiness. That's the positive side of how it works for you. But there's also a sense of, if you stand up for yourself, let's say you're in a job or something, you stand up for your values, sometimes you'll get ditched. Sometimes they'll write you up, send you home, fire you, suspend you, terminate, all this stuff. You'll be the victim of having stood up for what is right. So those people who believe in karma are only half right, because karma is just a very pseudo-religious way of saying that what goes around comes around, but people aren't actually quantifying what that really means. The energy that goes around comes around, but it doesn't hit everyone the same way. The ones who execute or release the negative energy sometimes don't get it back. Sometimes it just hurts someone else, okay? Sometimes you exert positive energy and you lift that up into the atmosphere, and you enhance the quality of life around you, and then it eventually comes back and enhances your life too. So there's many different ways it has an effect. There's no one way. So you can't just say, I'm going to be negative and I'm going to be evil, and then send that off, and immediately or somewhat later it comes back into the same proportion or more, and you end up having a negative effect. It doesn't always work that way, okay? So you have to realize that there's cause and consequence, and I understand God in more of the analytical sense, in more of the logical sense, rational sense. I am not really overly religious. I'm not going to say I'm not into the esoteric, because I am, but I'm not into the fantastical, let's say. I'm not into the fantastical. I'm not into the imaginary. I'm not into holding strong faith into something I really don't know at all. If I have strong faith, it's because I've seen it with my eyes or with my heart, but I've seen it, okay? And I understand it intellectually. It might not make logical sense to a scientific system of law, but it might make logical sense to a higher than scientific system of law, to a perhaps spiritual system of law. So I understand things at many levels, and I don't limit how I understand them. I understand things according to the level by which they must be understood. So that said, I do believe that God is rewarding people in small ways and people are being cursed or being released from the glory that is of God in small ways as well as in large ways. It's such a complicated question. There's just so much I have to put into it to give you a fair reply. I don't want to give you an answer that's not thorough enough or accurate enough. But in general, if you take the entire globe and people do all that is good, they love one another, they care for one another, they cut off diseases, they put profits on the back burner and humanity and love on the front burner. Not that profits are bad. They're very good because they give you more power to do more things, because money is fodder or money is ammunition to do things, right? Of course. But you can't put money ahead of humanity. That's where we're wrong. That's where the problem lies. Capitalism is the best form of an economic system. However, it's not perfect because people are not perfect. So there's no such thing as perfect, folks. So for those people who hate capitalism, you're kind of a contradiction, because this whole world has become a success in any way that it has, economically, by way of capitalism, by the way of supply and demand, fair trade, and selling your ideas at the best cost to the consumer. That's pretty much what that is. But as far as whether the world is blessed or not, whether the world is seeing the glory and the approval and the favor of God or not, depends on how well we love each other and how fully we are embraced into the mission of making this world better. As long as we are constantly on the mission of dog eat dog, of I hurt you or you hurt me, we're never getting there, folks. The whole century will just be a waste again, okay? We are still not there yet, and we have a very long way to go, and it's going to take a lot of enlightenment. It's going to take a lot of people who are going to see the light and realize that in order to make this drastic change, we're going to have to change ourselves first. And we have to realize that we are agents of change, individually, not as a group, individually. And individually we change in different ways, to the point where when you step back from the picture, you see the whole thing, you'll understand. We all have an effect on a global level when we all involve ourselves individually. Okay, but if we go by group mentality, what's going to happen is you throw off responsibility to the next guy who throws off responsibility to the next guy who throws off responsibility to the next guy. There's no way of gauging your progress, gauging the amount by which you are helping. Now you're just part of this group and there's no accountability, and that's where it can kind of fall apart. Yes, people can work together toward a goal, but it's more important that you still gauge yourself in how well you are working within that group, so that every individual is getting the greatest result for their actions individually. Because, you know, when each person goes individually and measures their own progress individually, what happens is everyone's accountable. So everyone's doing the best at what they can do. And then when you add it all up, that's when you have the highest sum. That's when you have the greatest sum. Okay. So God is not showing himself when we are in neglect. When we are hurting each other, by nature, by natural law, we will suffer the consequence of being hurt. When we love each other, by natural law, we will embrace the reward of what happens when we help each other. When we love one another, there's more donors. There's more people out there helping people. There's more donations and charities and so on. There's less politics, there's less greed, and there's less killing and murder and stabbing and blah, blah, blah. You know, everything else. So we have to realize that how we generate ourselves individually, multiplied around the globe, will affect the positive results that are yielded from this earth. And that is how God rewards or does not reward or punishes us. He allows us to determine for ourselves what our consequences collectively by the individual workings of every person. So the best thing you can do is become the strongest version of yourself, embrace who you are, find your highest calling, be the best effect you can on others, try to see yourself as a positive influence on everything you touch, pretty much, and allow your light to shine, allow your light to be contagious. And if you're contagious, more people are going to strive to do greater things. And what's going to happen is, eventually you're going to see light bulbs light up across the world. Okay? And more people are going to be loving and caring for one another. But it has to start from the individual. It has to start from you, my friend. So you have to make the effect that you want to achieve for yourself. And like I said, it's not like God's going to come down on a cloud and shake your hand for doing a good job. Instead, what's going to happen is you're going to feel better. You're going to be healthier. The air will be cleaner because we won't have chemtrails anymore. There won't be pollution anymore because people will stop embracing greed and hate and eugenics, and they'll focus more on cars that run on air or water. And we will release all of this toxic pressure that we are putting ourselves under. And we will allow the atmosphere to be cleaner. And we will love one another greater. But we have to embrace this reality. We have to embrace this in our minds and in our hearts, and then we have to live for it. You understand? You have to actually live for it. You can't just simply imagine it and then go back to your world that you live in and accept things how they are. You have to constantly defy the reality you see. So if things are negative around you, defy it. I refuse to accept that. I refuse to accept that. I refuse to accept that. No, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that. Yeah, you're going to face a lot of resistance, and some things you will end up not changing. That's not the point. The point is that you're making an effect, that you're moving forward and doing what you can when you can. That's all you can be responsible for, okay? So, cause and effect. When we love one another, care for one another, embrace natural cures, we have herbs and spices and all kinds of things that can heal us. The government needs to get out of the way and stop making those things illegal. We need to get rid of the chemtrails, get rid of the gasoline, get rid of all the toxic waste that we're putting in the water supply, okay? We need to cleanse our lives, alkalize our blood cells, and make everything purified. We have to love one another, stop fighting with one another, stop trying to steal and hurt each other, and just want what's best, and stop placing our stock in this life only. Okay, there is a life beyond this life. We are living to empower ourselves here, so that whenever we do go, we are at our greatest state. We don't want to be broken and damaged and leave this place like that. This is your chance to become strong and firm in who you are. So use it as an opportunity to bless others, to help others, to love others, to help others, to teach others, to heal others, okay? To enlighten people, to shake out their illusions and face them to reality and wake them up. We need to take these steps, and when we do, natural law will favor us. But we have to realize that natural law is God's way of showing consequence to our actions. And we can define this as God turning his back on us. But really, we're turning our back on ourselves by not agreeing with nature. God created a universe with planets, stars, and so on, and natural law that dictates the consequence of all of these things. We have to align ourselves with that. When we love one another, we help one another. When we help one another, we are all better off for it. So we have to make the world a better place, and we will see the effect of that. And that effect is God's way of letting the law that he created and put into play for us to work for us. So when we do what is right, we will see the positive result of our actions. And that's God's way of allowing natural law that he has created for us to have its effect on us in a positive way. But we have to actually take responsibility for ourselves and consider what our priorities are and move in that direction and stop being so firmly rooted to what this world is like right now. We have to envision how it's supposed to be and always remember that, move toward that, okay? So God will show himself in a positive way when we live positively. God will show himself in a negative way when we are acting negatively, because the law by which all of life is governed, that God has authored himself, will give us a natural consequence to our actions. I do not expect to see an incantation. I do not expect to see a spiritual body approach me, or God to come to earth and physically make himself manifest. I do expect the law that he created to run this planet to show what is right with him when you agree with it or not. So make sure you're right with nature. Make sure you're doing what's good for others. Make sure you are being positive. Make sure you are setting goals that are going to have a positive effect on people. Make sure you're not being lazy about it, and just move forward and have an effect. And you will see that God actually having a positive response to our actions by allowing nature to reward us for what we are doing by harmonizing with it. Hope I answered your question properly. I feel a little tired right now, but thanks for your question, and I will continue to answer more questions from you or from anyone else. Just send your questions to AskPolymathGeddy@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Geddy Friedman, on Instagram, PolymathG, or the Friedman Press. And that's about it for now. So thank you very much. I'll talk to you guys later.